We filmed this next video over 20 years ago, and I visited naturalist and TV presenter Chris Packham's then wildlife garden to pick his brains to get some ideas to create my own wildlife garden. I hope you enjoy the video.
When top garden designer Bunny Guinness moved to her Lincolnshire home, she planted an adjacent field with 1,000 young trees to shelter her garden from strong southwesterly winds. Now, 17 years later, these trees will give her the perfect location to create her own wildlife garden. To find out more about sharing her new space with the animal kingdom, Bunny went off to pick the brains of naturalist guru Chris Packham, whose own garden may seem a bit unruly, but is a paradise for wildlife visitors.
Well, here it is.
Amazing. What a shock. Not what I expected from the front. This is fantastic, real wildlife.
Yeah.
So how long have you been here?
Well, we've been here about 3 years. We haven't done much to actually manage the garden. We've just let it go, but it has transformed into something of the type of garden that we'll want in the end, you know. But come and have a closer look. Anyway, let's get into the garden. Well, have a look at this contraption, which I know is a little bit ungainly, but it's very functional.
Yeah.
I kind of like the functional nature of it. Now, what
Yeah.
it is a frame holding these lights, which illuminate this platform. And this is where we put all of our table scraps out for foxes, hedgehogs, badgers, whatever wants to come and take them.
Torture chamber then.
Or a swing, or a swing.
Right.
What it is these lights are wired to come on every night without fail, and they stay on throughout the night until the morning when they go off. And it's that regularity of light to accustomise the animals so they're not frightened of it, which is, you know, the key to the success here.
I think it's a fantastic idea, I must say. But if I was doing one of these in my garden,
Yeah.
the aesthetics of this slightly, you know, gall. But if I was doing one, could I not just erect the lights in a tree and then just have the simple wooden platform, which is unobtrusive?
We don't put the food out every day, you see. We only put it out when we have scraps. So we don't create a dependency.
Dependence. That would be very bad, wouldn't it?
Well, it would if we moved and the people who come to the house don't feed them at all. They'll be wondering where their supper is.
I just wonder if I do this, I would just get a load of rats and nothing else. But it's interesting that you reckon you do get a good balance of animals coming.
We do, and we do have rats coming, and I don't have a problem with that. I think they
pick them off with an air gun.
Sorry. Horrible thought. No, I rather like rats actually, and I think they're much maligned, and they have a role to play. I mean, they clean up. I mean, the foxes aren't going to clean this material up, but the rats will have this, and you know, and they do have a space in the community here.
Great nighttime entertainment.
It certainly is. Do you know, there's one thing they won't eat. Prawn crackers from our Chinese takeaways. Nothing that visits this garden eats prawn crackers.
Oh, my chickens eat those.
You'll be all right then. Let's have a look over here as well. This is one of the favourite spots in the garden for me. In summer, this bramble forms lovely pillows of flowers which attract huge amounts of insects, particularly butterflies, of course. And then in autumn, it's covered in fruit, which, you know, if we don't pinch it, the mice certainly do. So it's providing two levels of resource for different animals at different times of the year.
I love what you're saying, but the thing is, if you didn't actually manage these brambles, the whole garden would be one massive brambles. And you obviously, even you wouldn't go for that, would you?
I wouldn't, no.
You must do something to it.
You're right, they run riot, and you've got to trim them back hard. The thing is, though, I don't want to be too tidy, because I think that tidiness is one of the greatest vices that gardeners embrace. I mean, come and take a look at this. This is essential material. Bunny, just look at this. You've got to admit that it's splendid.
Oh, lovely. I love a bit of fungi. Very nice.
And it wouldn't be here if I hadn't left all of this log pile here. And looking up here, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, probably more growing on here, simply because I've left the material in the garden, not carted away or worse, burned it.
I see you've got a hedgehog box there, and I've always wondered if a hedgehog ever finds these houses, because it must be a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack in your garden. He must have thousands of Desirées around here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, actually. You've got to make it as best you can, keep it nice and dry, but also site it somewhere permanent like this, because, I mean, if the hedgehog does move into the compost heap or potential bonfire, you'll be working there, turning over the compost, unfortunately setting light to the bonfire. So the idea is that they gravitate towards the place where they're left in peace. But take a look at this, because this really is my pride and joy in this garden. An unusual one, you'll probably think. This huge dead oak tree
Yes.
Most people would take that down immediately and see it, I'm sure, as something which is ugly or potentially dangerous. But you know, 1/3 of all of the species of animal which can utilise oak live on it after it's dead. So this is a fantastic resource, and what's more, it's going to stay there for a minimum of 50 years. It will take 50 years for this tree to completely break down, and it's a joy to lie in bed in the morning and listen to woodpeckers tapping on it and nuthatches scurrying about it. And of course, there's a great wealth of beetles and things which would visit it in the summer.
I think actually it looks quite good in the centre. It is rather sculptural, isn't it? I mean, I thought it was a good eye-catching point. I'm full in favour of that. I think
And
it's very
it's
nice.
got ivy on as well, and I'm a great friend of ivy because ivy, you know, it offers such a great resource to wildlife, but most importantly, it provides a nectar source. Its flowers right at the end of the summer, in the autumn, when overwintering butterflies and things like wasps need that nectar to see them through the winter. And you know, people think it strangles trees, and I have to tell you, it wasn't responsible for the death of that one. You know,
There are two schools of thought on this, aren't there? To be honest, with trees, I'm not 100% sure which way I come down on, because some people have told me categorically it does strangle them, because it does get, you know, thicker than my arm, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's very tight, and those trees expand at quite a rate. Other people say like you, and from the habitat point of view, no doubt you were definitely right, but I'm not 100% convinced each way. But anyway, there it's doing a great job, isn't it?
I'm a live and let live at the end of the day, so I'll give ivy its chance.
There's so much food for thought here, isn't there? I'm going to create a wildlife niche in my garden, and I must say I've got lots of ideas from here, and I can't wait to put them into practice.
Good, I hope it prospers.
Back in Lincolnshire, Bunny's wildlife area has started to take shape. And although it's a large garden, many of the principles can be adapted to create a wildlife oasis in any garden, big or small.
For my wildlife garden, I wanted to make a bit of an entrance, and I found these 3 bits of oak, one which had a nice bendy top, and so I put them together to form an arch, so it creates a bit of a sense of arrival. With the rest of the wildlife garden, I wanted to make it more user-friendly, not just for the birds, the bees and the butterflies, but also for us too. And one way, I think, is just to create spaces that you feel naturally happy in. And in any woodland, you do tend to get clearings where a big old oak tree dies or something, and then it leaves a nice, big, natural open space, and the sunlight can pour in and it becomes very habitat rich. Here, there were happily no trees in this space. So purely by clearing down the cow parsley and nettles, it forms a well-defined area, and I've emphasised that with these simple log piles, and they just make the space feel really nicely enclosed. Water is a must for any wildlife garden. I've made this natural type pool here, and I've made it quite large, but in fact I'd wished I'd made it almost twice the size because I think it's so attractive. I've just used a plastic liner, but I put the protective underlay underneath it and over the top. So if badgers, foxes, rabbits come and paddle in it, it won't actually rip the liner. I've then hidden the edges with loads of soil, and the edges have been used to plant up these wonderful native aquatic plants. I want to encourage lots and lots of hedgehogs into my garden, so I've got a not too tidy policy. Bits of dead wood I leave around, but here I'm going to make a specially designed hedgehog house, and I've chosen this space because it's off the main drag. It's just a nice, secluded, quiet position for them, and I'm going to just clear away the basic vegetation. I'm just taking up the turf here because then it forms a nice secluded little hollow for the hedgehog, and it means that the cow parsley and the grass won't grow through the nest. I'm making a framework of logs, and they'll go all the way around the edge of my little pit, and they'll just support whatever I put on top. Hedgehogs don't start hibernating till about October, but it'll be nicely weathered in by the time they come to want it. I'm making this nice king-size bed for the hedgehogs, using leaves and straw because it's all about insulation. Keep them nice and warm all through the winter. I've got this horticultural fleece, which I usually use in the garden, mainly in the vegetable garden, and it just forms a nice cover to the basket. It'll keep the worst of the rain off. Don't have to be too paranoid, they don't mind a bit of moisture. These old bits of turf, which we cut off initially when we made the circle, will keep him nicely insulated through the winter. Lots of logs all the way around the top will just mask it, settle it in, make it a nice, cosy den for them. The quite a few gaps around the edge where you can fall in at a lower level, and also allows air and things to get in at the same time.
Now you can see the space has changed somewhat. The log piles have been eroded and eaten up by fungi, beetles and other wildlife. The pool dries out in summer, but as we've got other water bodies around the place, I'm not too worried about that. And because the whole garden is about self-sufficiency now, I let the cows and sheep intermittently graze this space. But I still think it's charming.